Good Thursday, everyone. Thanks for joining for a look at your weather tomorrow and also a peek at that tropical low that we might be looking at later this weekend. This is sponsored by Airtight Construction. All right, jumping right in here, you can see where we're at temperature-wise tonight. We got hot today and not much rainfall out there, so we are still hanging in the low to mid 80s, even the upper 80s over there on the Emerald Coast around Pensacola. 87 degrees tonight. And switching over to tomorrow's high temperatures, it's going to be another sunny, hot day out there. Not much rainfall. We're talking less than 5%. If we're going to get any rain, it's not going to be much. They're very isolated, so we're talking just mainly hot temperatures, and humidity's high, which means, highs in the mid 90s. Heat index, we're talking 104. Tomorrow afternoon again, look down here toward Franklin and Morgan City, 105, 106. So yeah, it's pretty typical around here, honestly, when you get to this time of year. When you don't have much rainfall and you have all the sunshine and the humidity still around, these are the type of feels like temperatures we see when we get into the afternoon. So not much change coming for the weather for really tomorrow. We are going to start seeing a potential for some change going into later on this weekend. So let's jump over to tropics. I know a lot of y'all want to talk about the tropics a little bit and see what we're looking at. The National Hurricane Center is still circling this area and putting a 20% chance for tropical development on here to become a depression or a named storm. Again, the likelihood of development or actually becoming a tropical storm or a depression, it's not high, but the potential is there. Now, I do think, and one thing I wanted to touch on here, because a lot of y'all sometimes ask me about this actual circle the National Hurricane Center puts on here. This is not indicating anything about where the storm will be heading. This doesn't indicate, it's going to go in this direction. This just indicates the area that the National Hurricane Center thinks that the storm may actually develop in. So it could develop here, 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 here. It does not mean anything about where it's going, nothing like that. This is just the development area that they think it may become a depression or a storm in if it does, okay? Now, personally, I think this might need to shift this way a little bit with the latest trends, right? I do not think this thing is going to develop into anything in this area. So will we see a shift in this shaded area maybe for the 1 a.m. update? I don't know. But it's just something to think about moving forward. But they say 20% chance of tropical development. But again, development is not really, important with something like this, because it's not going to become something strong. It's not going to be a big old hurricane. If anything, it's going to be a depression, weak tropical storm, if it even would get to that. There's going to be a tropical low that's going to be kind of just drifting in the Gulf, and it's going to be rotating some storms around Florida, Panhandle, and then if it goes to the west, we'll have to see, which areas might be affected moving forward there into next week. This is the European probability of development, and this purple area you're seeing here, that's about 30-ish%, so they're kind of in agreement right now with the National Hurricane Center. National Hurricane Center is 20, Euro's around that 25 to 30% range, so some pretty good agreement there. So just like I said, there's not much happening with it right now, so it's really hard to say who's going to see the most of the impacts, but this just kind of gives us an idea of what we might be looking at moving forward. This is tomorrow afternoon. You can look at that timestamp there in the top left. This is the morning, actually 7 a.m. tomorrow, and then we go into the afternoon, we start to see this little area come in, maybe even as early as tomorrow, all right? So this little area comes to the Gulf. Notice what happens around the broad circulation here, right? The circulation kind of comes in like this. Florida Peninsula, maybe some strong storms tomorrow afternoon to look for, all right? So keep that in mind. And then you can see they kind of start drifting into this direction also. So maybe a few storms up here too. And that's kind of going to be the story for the next few days, right? You kind of see as the heating of the day goes away, so do the storms. And then you get into Saturday, well, here we go again, right? The low you can start to see kind of intensifies a little bit out there in the eastern Gulf. This would be Saturday afternoon, and notice what happens along the Florida Peninsula again. Some storms forming here and kind of rotating around that broad circulation. Some storms forming in this area too. Remember, around this broad low, you'll have the circulation like this, and then really, a bigger circulation around it kind of going like that. And so that's why if you do have beach plans for this weekend into next week, there's probably going to be some kind of low center down here. So we're probably going to have some cloud cover. And, on and off showers and storms along these beaches and also up here in the Panhandle as well. So that's just really all I can give you right now on potential impacts. And I know a lot of people asking about beach trips. Will this affect my beach trip? In specific locations. I can't answer those questions right now because I just don't know where this thing is going to be located. What I can tell you is that there's probably going to be a low pressure in the Eastern Gulf, and it's probably going to be a broad circulation kind of helping to spawn some storms along the peninsula and along the Panhandle as we go into Saturday, Sunday, and maybe even stretching into next week. So some of the models we've been looking at tonight, and let's push this forward a little bit as far as it'll go, but you can see that circulation down here, right? And you can see it kind of expands a little bit by Sunday afternoon. And so this is where I'm thinking by Sunday, if you've been watching my post, I've been saying kind of Sunday is that day where if you do have beach plans along this area, well, then we might have some storms to deal with, going into Sunday. And you can look at that timestamp up there. This is the farthest it goes, but you saw what happened. We got into Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It just kind of drifted this way. Where will it go after that? Who knows what it's going to look like going into Sunday and Monday time frame. But the bottom line is this. There's going to be a broad low-level circulation, probably somewhere in the Eastern Gulf going into late this weekend. That's going to provide some storms probably for the Florida Peninsula and the Panhandle around this very broad circulation. I also do think that we could have some rip current risk posted along some of the beaches. I'm hoping we don't get to the double red flags, but we certainly could see some of those rip current risk as well. Whenever you have the broad circulation or increased winds along the coast, that can increase the chance to see those rip currents along the beaches. So that's the best I can give you right now on this. Of course, I'll continue tracking it and just kind of looking at the models and seeing what's happening. I know nobody wants a beach trip ruined. I don't think it's going to be any kind of rain that's going to be like all day in these areas. You saw the models just now. It's not indicating that. But if you do have trips planned to the beaches, prepare that we could see some showers and storms and maybe a rip current risk as well. That's the best I can give you right now, as far as I can't give you any specifics about any locations, but just prepare for that possibility that we could have some rainfall on and off this weekend, especially along the Florida beaches. So that's a look, the best I can give you right now. So I do appreciate you joining for this video. Go ahead and share it if it helped you out a little bit. I'd appreciate it. And I appreciate the sponsor Airtight Construction on this. Stay with the page. I'll keep you all updated as we go through this weekend and into next week talking about this tropical development potential.